I'm Jamie Crutcher from Crutcher's Auto Repair in Franklin. I'm a second-generation owner, auto technician by trade. I joined C12 in 2019. I was into a late evolving faith journey. Never really been spiritual in my 20s. Headed into my 30s, I got curious, and so I reached out to my pastor. And I asked him for like a specific Bible study plan that would address business. He couldn't really point to anything, but he mentioned what Dwayne was doing in C12. Chaplaincy was one of the early standouts as something easy to implement in business. It just made sense to me to do that, and I was pretty excited about it. We introduced it to the company, and then shortly thereafter, as C12 was giving me confidence of introducing my faith into the workplace and doing that properly, we decided to see if we could host a lunch every month, and it would be optional, and it didn't matter what you believed, if you were curious, if you were just hungry, or if you were a follower wanting to learn more. Seth, who a lot of this story is about, he had come to us from a local tire store. I had spoken with his manager, said he was one of their best employees, and come to find out that's because he was incredibly intelligent, just a gifted kid, and he came to work with me, and just what we did made sense to him. Came to a couple of our chaplain lunches and then kind of stopped coming. And the bad thing about a small team is it stands out when somebody's not there, and we didn't want that to be weird, but it was noticeable. He would just kind of sit out in his car while we were having lunch, which isn't uncommon for our techs to sit in their cars and have lunch and just kind of reset before they come back in. But he didn't enjoy fixing cars. Kind of had missed his calling as an engineer, I think, because he couldn't afford school at the time. So he wasn't doing what he would have been called to do and what his skill set was capable of. And so it made him kind of miserable and hard to work with. We had had some conversations, and it just didn't seem to take root. And it had gotten to the point where he was hard to deal with in the shop for my team, and I knew I was going to have to deal with it. It was actually the easiest person I've had to let go because I knew he just wasn't in the right place. He was a problem. He just wasn't doing what he was capable of doing. And when I sat down with him, I actually told him, I'm like, hey, this is the easiest that this will ever be for me because I feel like I'm setting you free to go explore who you are. So after the termination formalities, I actually spent a couple hours and talked, and he wasn't just lost professionally, but he was lost personally. I didn't know that any of my faith coming out to him would matter, but I explained my faith walk and my story and how I had evolved to peace, and then he left, I thought about it a lot over the next couple of days. I mean, I genuinely liked Seth and connected to him at a nerdy engineer, brain technician-y kind of level, and I hated to see a kid lost. So I sent him a couple of days later a Bible project video of Ecclesiastes. I didn't hear back from him that day, but the next day he did thank me for letting him go. He said he felt like he could breathe again because I think just the pressure that you're supposed to work, whether you're happy or not, was more than he could take action on. And time passed. There was a long gap in our communications. And then I got a phone call. I was actually in my chair in my quiet time one morning, and I got a phone call from Taylor. And she told me that Seth's mother had called the shop and said that he had died in a car crash. My heart sank because, one, he had found his way, but two, my prayer at that time was, Lord, I hope he found you quick enough, that he found his way home, because my journey was very long, and that wouldn't have got me there in that amount of time. So I went to the funeral that Sunday, not expecting anyone to know me, but I just felt like I needed to go. I went up to introduce myself to his mother, and she kind of broke down and just hugged me when I said my name, and I wasn't expecting that. As far as I knew, they had no idea who I was other than the guy that had fired their son at some point. But she had went on to tell me how he had recommitted to Christ, and not only that, he had reinvigorated the whole family around it, and they were sharing scripture together and getting together, and it really just created this revival in their household. And all of this just blew me away. So I talked to her for a few minutes and then went over to meet Seth's dad. And the thing that he said to me that was so powerful is that this is so much easier knowing he's with Jesus. And so we talked for a few minutes, and before I left, I stopped by to say goodbye to his mother. And I remember the last thing she said to me was, "Keep speaking into young men." I just went out to my car and I broke down in the car and just thank God that he reached him in time. On the way home, I realized that as an employer, it's complicated. Employee relationships are complicated. As much as you like people, it's still complicated. But I realized with all the turmoil, all the turnover, all the pains and struggles of employment, and there's good times, but it's taxing. But for one family to get peace, it's all worth it.